Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net's Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Evan.
Hey, Jason Underwood.
And we hope you're enjoying the shows on the Danger Entertainment Network, now including the Bearded Ones comedy podcast.
Yeah, we're super thrilled to be a part of this awesome lineup, guys. And what we do here on our show is, look, we are just trying to make you guys laugh through all kinds of different avenues.
Hear me out here. Yeah. Hear me out.
Please.
What we are is we're two geeky white dudes talking and trying to be funny.
Yeah, not try to blow in your mind here with with something brand new, but
You never heard anything like this. We talk about Star Wars. We're talking about superheroes.
Talking about Marvel movies, man. Look, we're cutting some we're breaking some damn boundaries over here.
We are breaking new ground.
Yeah.
But for real, what we do is we play invented games.
Yeah, and we try to spin everything into a brand new fun game that we've made up. We filter it all through that sensibility, and
we're both improvisers, so a lot of what we talk about ends up in sort of a scene that we have a lot of fun with. We talk about our lives, pop culture, and movies. We talk about a little bit of everything. So if that's what you like, check us out, Bearded Ones Comedy Podcast on the Danger Entertainment Network.
They look like Vikings.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name is Jen, and I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, as always, my co-hosts Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Hello.
Well, I would ask you how you're doing, but
You already know.
it's going to be a packed week this week, folks. Packed show, I should say, this week. Got lots of stuff to talk about, but not necessarily on my front. But we'll go through my week real quick. So basically what I've been working with is I think I mentioned it last week a little bit, that we're going through our review period at work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still have not gotten my one-on-one with my manager yet. And of course it's driving my anxiety nuts because did I put enough? Did I not put enough? Should I have said more? All of that wonderful stuff is going through my head. I had some really bad experiences in the past. And so, of course, those are all rearing their ugly heads that I'm going to get, I can't think of the word I want to use. I want to say sideswiped, but it's, anyways, taken off guard.
Blindsided?
So, thank you. Blindsided. So, I just keep thinking, from my experience with my manager, that's not her style. So I'm sure it's just my anxieties and my past history coming up to harass me, basically. But as much as I try to tell myself that, it doesn't stop the feelings from still being there. So it's kind of one of those moments that you just have to sit in it and just let it work its way through and try to limit collateral damage. So, which means I talk about it here, but try to avoid talking about it. Definitely not at work, but, in general, try to just sit in it and try not to dwell on it and just kind of let it be, because it is going to be what it's going to be. There's nothing I could do right now to change the outcome of what it's going to be.
Right.
That's the truth.
Yep.
So, so a lot of work along changing my thought process and where I'm looking and all that other jazz. Because it gets insane. I mean, those who have anxiety understand completely that it gets so just insane with the extent your anxieties will go to. I've had thoughts of I'm going to lose my job. I've had thoughts of all sorts of stuff, which is so out of the realm of reality that it's like, why is this even popping in my head? Yeah, I guess, and there is a possibility, very slim, I'm sure, possibility that I could lose my job over a bad review, but the odds and the expectation of that shouldn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
But yet it does. Because that's what I do. I like to torture myself.
Fair enough, yeah.
I should say my brain likes to torture me. So I've been kind of sitting in that and dealing with that. And of course, you guys get to hear my triannual rant about getting close to the holiday time. So I get to go freak out about my house and try to get everything as put together as I can put it together. So I mean, it's going okay. Still got my mantra, which is always very important, as we've talked about before on here. My mantra that if they love me, they accept me. Yep. And they accept me for, and I just keep telling myself that. I'm like, no, these are people who love me that I'm inviting over into my home. They accept me for who I am. They understand my flaws, and they don't care. They are not here to judge me. They are here to love me. So I keep repeating that ad nauseum in my head. Eventually it'll stick. I am getting, every year is getting a little bit easier, and every year I'm getting a little bit less hyper about things. It's been helpful. My father-in-law has been coming up quite a bit this year. So it's been helpful because every time he comes up, I'm doing less and less. Keep that in mind that I keep my house to a fairly decent standard to begin with. So it's not like he's coming over and there's clothes everywhere and dirty dishes in the sink and all this other stuff. I mean, it's not like that.
Right.
I'm not a whore or anything crazy, but it's not what I would consider parent ready. And he's been coming anyways. And I've been okay with this.
Yeah.
He surprised us a couple times by coming in sooner than we expected him to and stuff like that. So I wasn't able to do the whole parent ready stuff. And it still is okay. And I think those experiences have helped to reinforce it's okay.
Right.
I'm for comfort more than I am going for perfection. So,
Yep.
So been working through that. What else? I'm still working through kind of what I talked about a little bit last week about, I guess, my odd rant that I did last week. But I guess the ultimate takeaway, I'm still working with if it's not a good situation for you, you need to remove yourself from it. So we're still going through some of that. And it's interesting because it's kind of a little bit fortune telling, a little bit of looking into the crystal ball to try to determine whether a situation is going to be good or bad for you. And it's tough because you can't control others. You can only control yourself. So going into situations, you can't say, well, if they do this, I can do this. You can, but you can't guarantee they're going to do that.
Right.
If that makes sense. So trying to make a decision on what's going to be best for you based upon a moving target is tough. So we're still kind of going through that and working through that. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So those are kind of like my big things that I've been working through. On a fun note, my dogs, I got to meet my neighbor, which was kind of fun because my dogs decided to go play with her dogs. It was not a play date. It was not scheduled. And they just decided to take it upon themselves to go play with the other dogs.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yes. So the retraining collars had to come out. Thankfully, I was dressed because half the time I let the dogs out, I am not dressed. So thankfully, I was fully dressed. And when she brought back, the one came back naturally. He's less of the daredevil than the other one is. My Eeyore, as I call him. So my Eeyore came back to me right away when he heard me calling. My Tigger decided she was going to stick around and play, and that's the one my neighbor had to bring home.
Wrong pack.
Right.
So I had to apologize, and she's like, "It's okay." It's like, yeah, some random pit bull just came over and was playing with my dog. I'm like, yeah. She didn't say that, but yeah, I could tell it was kind of on her face that she wasn't 100% comfortable with the whole idea of my dog running free. But
right.
So the training collars had to come back out, much to my husband's chagrin because he hates them. But it is what it is. He was out of town this weekend, up north hunting. He got an 8-point buck.
Wow.
Yes.
Nice.
We're going to have venison for the entire year because he was a big boy. But so he was out of town. The dogs felt that they could take some liberties, and I had to shut them down.
Aha.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes, Mama had to lay down the law.
Yep.
So that's been my excitement for this week. Who wants to go next?
I can, if you want. I over the weekend had to cancel. I had plans to go out on Saturday night, and then I was supposed to go up with Tony to do our friend Dev's podcast, the Shot of History podcast, and on Saturday I hurt my back again.
Oh no!
And
Oh,
it wasn't
no.
it wasn't anywhere near as bad, but it was like I was just getting out of the car and I was feeling good. You know how it is, like whenever something like that starts feeling good, you stop thinking I'm injured, right? You know, so
Yeah.
I just twist and got out of the car and I was like, ooh, I felt like a little twinge, you know, and then it started kind of really bothering me again. And I was like, well, so, you know, I texted, you know, Jeannie and, you know, apologized to her and said, I'm, you know, sorry, I gotta lay down, basically. I can't, you know, whatever, which stinks, but, you know, she's understanding and everything, you know, so it's, you know, it's just whatever. And then, you know, later that night I was like, man, I am still not feeling much better. So, you know, I texted Tony and was like, hey, I can text you in the morning, but odds are I'm not going because I'm thinking I just need to, you know, probably take my medicines and just lay in bed, basically. And that's what I ended up doing. So I feel quite a bit better today. Like you know, I feel pretty close to normal today. So, well, not normal, but, you know, where I was before the setback kind of thing. So I think it was just, you know, it was just with my body going, hey, you're not 100% yet, you know, like, take it easy. So I listened and have been pretty careful since. But I got up today and my mom told me that, they had to take, the dog into the vet. And, when they did, you know, they found out that her kidneys were shutting down and that she's, just not, you know, her heart rate was off and you could just tell she just wasn't herself. And they basically told my mom, you know, that, you know, if they were to bring her home, that basically before long she probably would start having seizures. And, you know, it's like we went through that with Missy, our cat. That's actually what led us to take her into, you know, the animal, the emergency vet, was that, you know, I looked over and she was having a seizure. So, you know, you don't want your animals to go through that because, you know, you literally can't do anything for them. You know, like they can sedate them so that they don't know what's going on, but it's just, they basically got the same kind of prognosis we got, which was like, you know, the odds are like minimal that this isn't, you know, this won't be the end basically. And kind of just letting things go on just seems cruel. So they chose to, you know, have her put to sleep and, you know, so it's been a real melancholy day around the house, of course, you know, because,
Yeah.
you know, it's, you know, no matter who it is, you know, it's never easy to lose, you know, an animal. I mean, like I said, you know, I'm a cat person. I'm not super close, wasn't super close to her, but, you know, I'm still going to miss her being around and stuff. And, you know, our cat Callie has already been over in kind of the area where she sits a little, you know, out in the kitchen, sniffing around and kind of, cause she knows, like, you know, normally when she goes over that, like Kelly would, cause we, you know, would keep Molly over in a little area sometimes because, you know, she was like 22 or 23 and she, you know, couldn't completely control her bladder. So sometimes we, you know, kind of had to isolate her a little bit cause otherwise she'll pee all over the house. But, Callie would go over there and basically flaunt her freedom, you know, in front of the area. So I think she went over there kind of to do that and was like, hey, what's going on here? You know, so. And that's, you know, it's just too bad because she was a good, sweet dog. But, you know, in the end, it's like, you know, like I said, she lived a long, you know, pretty pampered life. So, you know.
It's pretty amazing for a dog to be able to live long.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, just always sad when you lose a companion. So,
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I barely slept last night, and had to get up because that was going on. And then we went to the grocery store and got home, ate, did Salty Language. Now we're doing this, and I'm just. I'm going to be on fumes by the time we're done, probably. And I, for me, can't sleep in tomorrow because I have my first therapy appointment with my new therapist tomorrow. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about that. It's just probably going to be super low energy going in.
Bring flowers and candy. Make sure you compliment her outfit.
No. That is not an appropriate relationship to have with her.
Right.
No, I am looking forward to it, though. It's just, I'll be honest, part of me today was like, maybe I could reschedule it.
Sure.
It's like, no, like there's no point because, once I go, I'm not going to go again probably for, 6 weeks or so. It's not like it's an every week thing or whatever at this point, so. Yeah, so, that hopefully the week will start picking back up, and from this point forward here and whatever. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. I really spent, most of the week still taking it easy, and then the weekend was,
God, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I've been able to get back to doing most of what I was doing. It just stinks. I haven't really had a chance to go out and socialize, and I had 2 opportunities and had to cancel both of them because of, but, got to listen to my back. So.
Silver lining there. You're looking forward to going out and socializing.
Yeah. Well, I always am. Like, I'm always looking forward to it, but I've always got the voices in my head that are, the doubt. And all the stuff, or the anxiety just looking for reasons not to go. It's like, I still want to go, but at the same time, it's like, how can we get out of this? So, yeah. But yeah, so I think that's, trying to think here. Yeah, that's about it for me. I was just looking over what we talked about on Salty Language to see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about on here, but that's really it. So, have at it.
Yeah.
What's been going on with you?
The cheery, awesome news goes last.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who have been listening to the show for a while, about 1.5 years ago, I talked a lot on an episode about going to Eugene, Oregon to see 2 of my oldest friends. Or I guess I shouldn't say oldest friends. I guess they'd be friends from up here that I've known. It's Sharon's oldest friend married my first sponsor in sobriety. And I mean, basically, whatever I share about on this show, I learned not all of it from him, but a lot of it. Everything about how I've learned to live my life differently than when I drank was because of him. And I got shined on that weekend, and they used her mental health as a reason. And, I shared on here about how I totally understood because of doing this podcast and that they, they were happy to know that I understood. Still, that was it. If you remember, I basically was like, that was it. I was done.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to reach out anymore in that situation. And then on Saturday, Sharon, I think, was taking a shower or bath or whatever, and she gets out and checks her voicemail and just all of a sudden bursts into tears because Eric killed himself on Thursday. And it's just so wild. The only time that he was not with Jessica, so they just a little background. They work together. They live together. They vacation together. They do church together.
Oh, wow.
They share a cell phone together.
Wow.
Oh my.
The only time that Eric was ever alone was after they ran a food cart in Eugene, Oregon. After they dropped off their supplies for the day, Jessica got started. Eric would go take the car to a friend's house and park the car, but he never went to the friend's house. They found him at home in the garage with the engine running.
Oh my gosh.
He drove home.
Wow.
Jessica's mom had said that, they're like, wow, I don't understand. He was so happy. It's like, yeah, I know why he was happy, because he made a decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For days before he'd been happy. There'd been no fighting or anything. It's like, well, yeah, that was also part of the problem.
Yeah.
He had no fight left.
Yeah.
So the hard part about this, I mean, besides, I guess I sit here and I go, I lost a friend. Did I? I mean, did I?
Right.
Somebody I haven't seen in 5 years? Somebody that couldn't even see me for 5 minutes? Did I lose a friend? It changes how it feels. Right? When I've had no contact except for a phone call about 3 years ago where he was walking the dog. They'd had some big old fight and a blowout, and he didn't know what to do. He was trapped in this relationship. That's how he felt. He felt trapped. He didn't know how to handle her outbursts. I mean, she definitely has mental health issues, but the way he described it is she uses them against him. And, there wasn't a whole lot I could say to him, unfortunately, because what I know is what he taught me. He gave me a solution through 12 steps. I've gone, to CODA. I haven't gone through the 12 steps in CODA, but, I've done parts of the workbook. I've read books, and it still comes back. I said I have good news and bad news. I said the good news is there is a solution to what you're going through. The bad news is you already know what to do. You just need to go do it.
Yeah.
You need to go get yourself to a meeting. But whatever, got him to the point of, sobriety wasn't enough to get him to find what he needed in codependency. So I had, one person reach out to me this weekend and said, and this is where I really want to get into is my internal, what's been playing out in my head, my heart was I had one person message me. I sent out a bunch of messages to people that I knew would want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally none of us have talked to him. Nobody.
Wow.
The men's group that he helped. I'm the only person that's had contact with him out of the men's group. People have reached out to him.
Wow.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. One person got a hold of me and said, "What happened? What was, what caused it?" And I said, "Codependency." And later on, I was like, I really shouldn't. I don't need to say that. That's my opinion based on what I experienced.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I experienced this. I got that phone call. And so it's very hard. I had, just right off the bat, it's like, there's nothing to be mad at. There's nothing to ask why. I know exactly why.
Yeah.
And it's not her fault. It's it's both of them. It took two to create that relationship. And, there's three things that I just keep playing on that explain everything. And two of, at least for me, where I stand, two of them I've already talked about. Phone call, me trying to see them, and her not, she couldn't say, go see your sponsee. Like, I was the only person that he ever took all the way through the 12 steps successfully. He had one sponsee commit suicide.
Oh my God.
So it's not like, he's been in it. He's been in the struggle with recovery. He's inspired. I've had so many people get a hold of me who he inspired.
Mm.
But the one thing, the third thing, and this is something that I had to remind Sharon about, was we had it was kind of a bachelorette party kind of a thing as a group, and we all ended up at a condo in Sun Valley, and we were just hanging out, and we asked Eric to tell us what it was about Jessica that he loved. And he described all these things about what she does in the community, what she does for her church, all these parts about her as an individual. And when Jessica was asked about what she loved about Eric, she did the same thing. She talked about all these things about him as an individual.
Oh, wow.
They stopped doing all of them when they got married.
Wow.
All of them stopped. And, I harbored resentment over that for a long time, because I was watching a guy who, this is when I still had some contact with him, and I just wanted to go smack him upside the head.
Yeah.
Like, you're being a dummy.
Yeah.
This is not healthy. If you go see the little Cosmo in the aisle of the grocery store that says, the 10 successful things to do in a relationship, they did none of them. None of them.
Wow.
But then I realized that's like, well, who am I to judge what people do for love?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Who am I to say how people have relationships their entire lives where they stop being who they were before and become this entity. But now, this is the hard part. If there was a service, there's no way I'm going to it. I wanted to see him alive a year and a half ago. I have no interest in someone that's dead.
Right.
And I have nothing kind to say.
Well, the thing is, and it's so powerful. I mean, what you just said was incredibly powerful. And it's so difficult because you almost mourn not the person that passed away, but the person that was before.
Exactly. That's exactly it. The person that I knew has been gone for so long.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just like, that happened a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it doesn't hurt me so much. This person's been gone. What it is, the sad part about it is I honestly believe that she will kill herself. 100%.
Wow.
Right now she's at her parents' house, but someday they won't be able to see her and she'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If she doesn't feel guilt, and I hope she doesn't, I pray. Because this is where I had some resentment 2 nights ago, and then I was like, okay, what are my tools? Gratitude, love, compassion, pray for her. What did I talk about a couple weeks ago?
Yep.
Last week, you pray for this person. So I hope she doesn't feel any guilt. I hope she never finds out that he reached out to somebody like me, desperate.
Yeah.
I don't want her to find out about that.
Right.
Yeah.
She'll blame herself.
Sure.
I hope she can find a way to continue on with her life without him. And I know this man. I mean, we shared the things, part of going through a 12-step is not only facing your own fears and really digging in deep to find where the change is. In order for me to really look into the things in my life where I could learn from, he shared the things in his life that he learned from, right? So the things that nobody ever knew, right? So I knew him. We talked about this. He had a sponsor that committed suicide. We talked about suicide.
Yeah.
He was not that person. He had so many people to talk to, so many people to reach out to, so many people to help him. And he'd done it before. He had a relationship before this one where he went way too deep. But he eventually showed up at, was with my ex and sat down and came clean with what was going on and asked for help. And he got to a point where he felt like he couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just was just turning it to the fact that right off the bat was like, he had no place to go. So he found the way that was going to give him relief.
Yep.
Where he wasn't going to leave her. Because I, from the way he described to me in the phone call that if he left her, she would threaten to kill herself if he ever left her. And so he couldn't leave her. He couldn't, he couldn't stand up for himself. He couldn't, and so I've just been, like when people asking, how are you doing? And I say, I'm good. I'm not fine.
Yeah, right.
Because we know what that means, right?
Yeah.
But I'm good because I have the tools. And every day is another reminder of it's like walk the walk, don't just talk the talk.
Yeah.
Find the gratitude. But I have my boundaries, and my boundary is I never need to. I don't need to be around her ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was part of the problem. She wasn't part of a solution.
Yeah.
And I hope she finds one. I really do.
Yeah.
And I will speak my truth, but I don't need to do it in any way that's mean. But the fact of the matter is I had certain experiences that lead me to a conclusion. And you know what? I may be wrong, but it's my experience.
Right.
And that's all I've got. And when you have a friend reach out in desperation, in fear, and then this happens, it's like that's truth to me.
Yeah.
I know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a note. Maybe other people do, but I don't.
Yeah.
So I had a great laugh this morning though, because I thought about excuse me, what happened a year and a half ago. And so, I wasn't able to see them. And so Sharon's brother, Steve, my brother-in-law, which is still kind of weird, reaches out like, hey, you want to get together? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Sounds great. So I go out and I saw her where she grew up. I saw her family home because Steve has the home. And, he says, I'm a bit of a bachelor. And, so the house is bachelor house. I walked in, there's dust and then there's dirt. And he collected dirt.
Oh no.
And I told Sharon, she's like, don't tell me. Like, that house used to be immaculately clean. Sharon had to wash her dog before Mom allowed the dog to come into the house.
Oh, wow.
So I spent the day with a hunting dog training, bird shooting, horse riding, car racing, Trump voting,
Nice.
dust collecting dude, and had the greatest day. I had the greatest day with him. I had so much fun learning about how he trains dogs for birding.
Oh, right.
It was amazing, and showed me around town and everything. I had this great day, and I laughed about it today. I just laughed about it. I said, I'm sorry I didn't get to see Eric, but maybe things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And this is going to turn into all good things. Like I talked to my new sponsor today on the phone for a little while, and he's just such a positive person, and just there's no sense in ruminating and getting stuck on negative things. It's just so much easier to just look at like, hey, he's at peace now, and he made the decision himself, and that's why I posted that on Facebook. This was his choice. He chose this.
Now,
and I respect his choice.
This is something that a rare chance to look at the insight in this, that, how every time you hear about somebody taking their own life, there's always the discussion of it being selfish and all this other stuff. And I've always said I can understand the mindset because, I've been there, like I haven't done it or actually attempted, but I've put a lot of thought into how I would and all these kind of things, and got real close a couple of times. And what I take from hearing this is, okay, you mentioned that he felt trapped, right? That when you're trapped, you feel like you've lost control. You no longer have a choice, right? By him making this choice, he took control back. Now, it may not
That's
be.
why he was happy.
It may not be the answer any of us or anybody wanted for him, but like you said, that was his decision. He took it back. Now, I also want to make sure it's being bold type, like caps locked. I'm not advocating suicide. I'm not in any way, doing that. But I just want people who are listening, like, if you can't fathom how someone could get to this point, this is how. And that's the way a lot of people end up deciding on to take their own life, is because they feel trapped, whether it's by their depression or other mental illness, or it's a situation that they're in. Like you said, he felt he couldn't leave her, or, whatever their reason is. This is a situation where people can feel hopeless, and the only way they can find their peace is to not exist anymore. And it's sad. None of us want that for someone, but something else you said I wanted to go back to real quick, so I don't forget, was, you mentioned how essentially nobody talked to him anymore. And how, if he felt he couldn't reach out to people, that's the exact situation that every week when we're like, hey, reach out if you need, help, if you this, if you that. That's why we go over that every week. I bring that up at the end of the show, because it's so important to not let whatever's going on in your head, again, whether it's mental illness or whatever it is, don't let that tell you to push people away. Fight that urge. That you have to fight that and fight it and fight. You can't stop. The minute you stop, it wins. So you have to just constantly fight that. And the way you fight that is every time you have that inclination, reach out to somebody. And if one person can't, just keep going until you find somebody. And I know sometimes it's tough. Everybody's busy. But if you call people in your life and you explain to them, hey, I'm not in a good place right now, blah, 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 most of the time somebody will realize that you're shooting off flares, that you need some help. So I just want to, like you're saying, the silver lining situation is like, okay, how can we turn something that's seemingly, however you want to word it, a tragedy, just, sad, whatever it is, how can we turn this into learning experiences, positivity going forward? And this is a great place, is say, hey, a lot of people end up taking their own life because isolation ends up being the path.
That was it right there too. Couldn't be any more isolated.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that I want to take from it, at least as far as a message, because I want when Tom and I talked today, good is going to come out of this. Right off the bat, a little bit of good today. Tom and I talked on the phone today. We haven't really talked much, so hey, that's a little good thing.
Yep.
But the bigger good thing is, I'm telling you, don't give yourself up in a relationship.
No.
Don't give up your friends in a relationship. If the person you're with wants you to give up your friend, and I'm not talking about your ex-girlfriend, or your ex-boyfriend.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your friends. I don't like him. I don't care if you don't like him. You don't have to be around him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my friend. Don't give up your life.
Yeah.
Who you are that got you into that relationship, you need that life still in some way.
Yeah.
Even if you see them only once a year, once every other year, go skiing a weekend with them. Go play, if you play, it's like Eric skied, Eric played tennis. He stopped doing both. Don't do that.
Yeah. And by the way, for anyone who's familiar with depression, you have just riddled off, like through this all this time of you talking, so many red flags for depression.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Like it is, and exactly, because and that's why when we get to isolation and giving up things you love and just all these different things, it just pulls you further and further away from happy-ish, as we'll go with, and contentment. And like you said, don't give yourself up.
It's crazy how it's just a different situation, because it wasn't somebody alone.
Yeah.
It was a couple in love.
Yeah.
And to sit there and say, love killed them? No. Fear did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about fear.
Yeah.
It was two people that feared change. They changed everything. And then we're in fear.
Yeah.
And isolated themselves from the outside world. And all they had was fear.
And
it's wild.
It really is. When you stop and you think about, mental health and isolation, it goes hand in hand. And something that I talk about quite a bit on the show is my world getting too small.
Yep.
And needing to open my world back up again.
Yep. That is something Eric, he used to talk about this all the time.
Me too. If you guys have paid attention to me, I talk about it a lot too. Yep.
Like, you can't let your world get too small, because all of a sudden it's a Alice in Wonderland effect. And when you let your world get too small, everything else becomes really big. So, and to fill up that room. So all of a sudden, these things in life, these trials and tribulations that we go through, which are really small and insignificant in the majority of people's lives, because they're able to put perspective around things, they become gigantic and insurmountable when you're so far down that rabbit hole. So don't let yourself go down that rabbit hole. When you feel it start, you have to fight it, reach out and get someone to help you fight it. Because once you're in the mix of it all, it's so difficult to fight your way back up. If you can catch things early on and you can keep an eye on things from the beginning, all of a sudden it's not as bad. And can't tell you how many times I've had to tell myself this, and I've had to really stop, put things in perspective, use my tools to say, okay, is this really this anxiety-ridden, dread, horrible issue, or in the scheme of things, is it this too shall pass? And it's so tough. I mean,
Well, and also,
I speak about voices. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other side of this too is if you have a friend who you can see their world shrinking, make sure they're doing okay. Like reach out to them. You don't have to, if you want to approach it, just always remember to, do so without being accusatory. But even, I'll be honest, I've had people approach me that way, and it is a wake up at times. I've had people like ask me, hey, have I done something, like to offend you or make you mad because we don't this or this anymore? And I know a lot, and it's amazing how many times I don't even realize that I've done it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, wow, that is not something I want. So now it's, okay, now I'm going to focus on whatever. And then what that ends up doing is it wakes me up a little bit to where now I'm starting to push back at the boundaries of my shrinking world, to try to stretch it back out. And, so if you do see a friend of yours or family member or whatever, someone going through this, like I said, just kind of reach out to them and just say, hey, I noticed whatever, even if it's like, hey, I noticed you don't go out as much as you used to or whatever. And just, is everything okay? Kind of a thing. And just, show compassion. And like I said, try not to seem as though you're accusing them of something, and, cause that'll generally just be met with resentment. But,
well, another thing, so if somebody who doesn't have mental health and is struggling with this concept, I would recommend, and you won't hear me say this often, but I will recommend watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette franchise. And here's why. Because
I got to hear this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
They manufacture this effect on these people. Because they remove all outside stimuli. There's no TV. There is no friends. There is no family. There is no outside world. There's only this world that exists in this house and these people. And they isolate so much. That is why people go crazy. That is why people act weird. They are not themselves, because it is a completely manufactured hotbox. That is the exact thing that we do to ourselves in our brains. And so when you're working through different mental health issues, it's almost identical, because just like so-and-so eating my ice cream when I specifically said it was my ice cream is not a big deal in the real world. And we all understand this is not a big deal in the real world, watching it. But when they're living it, this is a huge deal, because it's about respect. It is about all these other things. It's about ice cream. And that's part of the reason I actually can watch those shows, is I can actually relate to some of the craziness, because I'm like, oh yeah, this is familiar to me. I feel this in my brain. I can see this type of situation unfolding. So it's not an exact science, of course, and by no means am I making light of mental health, but that is just kind of one small example that someone who's not familiar could kind of look to and see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, you could see where it's a great example of a world getting small, and you can no longer tell the truth from the false. And these are two factors that are, like, Eric always talked about how his world, that he always was afraid about getting sober because he thought his world would get small, but instead his world got bigger. And he made more friends, and he made more connections, and he pushed himself to do things that he ordinarily wouldn't do. He wasn't exactly this giant outgoing social butterfly. He wasn't. He really was more at home, like his life was recently. But there was something that he got from it. So he pushed himself. He took people to meetings. What kills me is, like I said, this has already happened. This didn't happen Thursday. This happened years ago.
Which is usually the case in suicide.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's not. I mean, I'm guessing. I'm not a doctor. I haven't done the science on this or the stats, but from the situations I've been around, the people who've tried or who have committed suicide, most of the time this is something that they've been thinking about it for a while. Yeah. And whatever the cause was that groundwork was laid. A
long time ago, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped helping people a long time. I know, I'm sure he helped people within their church and things like that.
Yeah.
And he did outreach wherever he could. I'm sure he did. However, who he was and what he did for helping people that were trying to get sober, I can't even begin to describe it. The amount of hours and basically volunteering his time for other people to help other people. It's a part that kills me about this, and that his world got big because of that, and it's just so sad that he got to a point where he literally could not tell the truth from the false anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't.
Yeah.
Or, and like I had somebody that he had mentored, that he and I had both mentored. He called me yesterday, and I mean, he was broke. It was tough. Like he was in a restaurant on a date and he was ready to cry in this bathroom. And he said, was it all just talk? He's like, I still have notes. I have notebooks that Eric gave me that I still read. He's like, I know I'm no longer on the path, but it reminds me that path is out there. And he's like, was it all talk? And I'm like, no, it wasn't all talk.
Yeah.
It was all true, but he couldn't apply it. He couldn't apply what he learned in sobriety. Those principles, he couldn't transfer them over to the other things in his life that needed help.
Yeah.
And you see this all the time. Hey, I licked my drinking problems. Sure, I can take care of my, whatever it is, mental health, gambling, overeating, money problems, you name it, codependency, whatever it is. It's not always that easy.
Yeah.
Just because you are motivated and you apply these principles to this one thing in your life doesn't mean that it just automatically transfer over to the next.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you've mentioned on here before that what getting sober made you do was it amplified your other things. It made it to where you were like, whoa, I have to learn how to deal with XYZ, or I have to do this. And I would assume that's the case for probably
a lot of people. It does. Like, one of the most common things that people, it takes a while usually, quitting smoking.
Yeah.
Because everybody's out there smoking after a meeting.
Yeah.
And eventually it starts to sink in, especially what's really wild is I've noticed it happen more often with the people that get into the service part of the programs, where they start volunteering their time and things to the other aspects, the organizational parts, because you start taking, there's all of the 12-step groups, the whole concept, it started, well, what's kind of interesting is, so it started with Alcoholics Anonymous, but where it really started was Al-Anon.
Right.
So Al-Anon was when the first time someone said, hey, I wonder if these things will work for the people that have to deal with the drunks. Al-Anon became CODA, which is the short for, basically Codependence Anonymous, right? Because it was the same concepts. Someone that's living with someone that's killing themselves needs to have tools too.
Right.
They need to learn how to be able to, right. And that's the same thing as if you go to a big city, there's an Al-Anon type group for someone that lives with an alcoholic, someone that lives with a gambler, someone that lives with an overeater, someone that lives, I mean, you name it. There's a support group for the spouses of. And all of those, that applying these concepts to, applying these principles to other things started with the wives of the drunks. The drunks didn't care. They were too self-centered and trying to save themselves, right? But the wives are like, I keep meeting other people that, why don't we apply this to other things? And so what happens is there's Alcoholics Anonymous has 12 steps, 12 traditions, and 12 concepts. The 12 traditions are about how the group, how the group lives. It's about the idea of it goes more into not bringing outside issues into the group. It goes more into the kind of anonymity, how it works. And then the 12 concepts are about how the whole structure of AA runs. And so what we like to say is the 12 steps prevent suicide, the 12 traditions prevent homicide, and the 12 concepts prevent genocide. Because it's about us interacting with each other. So the steps are, how do I exist within myself? Mm-hmm. How do I become a better person? The traditions are about how do I interact with the people immediately around me, just one-on-one with you. What's the best way that we make this work? And then the concepts are about how do we do this as a whole? What's best for us? And they're just smart. They're all based on just basic, simple concepts and practices of organization. It's nothing new. It just happened to get compiled together in a certain way, and presented. Yeah. And I've noticed that when people get into those parts of the program, that's when they start looking at like, oh, well, maybe I should do this with my smoking, which is where I was going with this. Right. It's like, oh, well, I was able to stop. Maybe I'll just use the same steps and I'll apply it to my smoking, and which is really hard. I mean, it's one of the gnarliest things ever to stop doing. Yeah. But yeah, like I told Sam, I said, Eric just couldn't automatically just apply it over there. And unfortunately, he was actually too far gone by then anyway. Yeah. By the time that I made the suggestion to him what he should do, it was, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He was trapped. Yeah. And so I know that we've all known people that have been in a relationship like this. I've been in relationships like this. Yeah. There's no amount of words that will get someone to wake up. But, do I regret not, jumping on my soapbox and yelling and screaming about this because it might kill you? No, because it wasn't my place. Yeah. I mean, it just wasn't.
Well, and you even said, I mean, you talked to him and you gave him the, what you felt was the answer, so you did what, you did your part.
It's all I know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't give wisdom you don't have. So
that's it. And that's what I've learned is that I can only share my experience because it makes it really easy when I just share my experience. And if I don't have experience with it, I don't make it up. Yeah. I go, hey, oh, you're struggling with depression? Well, here, let me put you in touch with my friend Brian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mania. Here, let me put you in touch with my friend Jen. Yeah. I don't know about these things, but I know someone that does, and maybe they can help you. Yeah. If you're willing to reach out to them, but it still comes down to them reaching out. Right. Mm. That's the one thing that I really respected is that nobody that ever mentored me in learning to live a different life. They didn't pretend that they had all the answers. They only talked about the solutions that help them, their experience, strength, and hope. And I respected that.
Yeah. And I think that's been our goal on here too.
Too.
You know,
Yep.
is really to just like these, you know, like, you know, these are our stories, you know, or whatever. Like, you know,
Yes.
We're stack
because
that voice.
you know, because it is. There's so many people that have the things that, you know, the three of us have dealt with and or are dealing with. And just what works for me doesn't work for this person, and what works for Jen may not work for this person. And, you know, because we're all different and our situations are different. So, you know, and just as different people, you know, we just process differently. So sometimes things don't work across the board, but
No, they,
you know.
and they don't always. I just really want, like, you know, Sharon came up to me and was just like, you know, please don't ever do this. And I'm like, I won't.
yeah,
I won't, because I'm selfish. It's part of what makes me an alcoholic is my self-centeredness and my selfishness. And I married the woman that allows me to be selfish.
Yeah.
And she said it herself. She's like, you know, yeah, I can, because I said I'm selfish in this relationship. She said, so am I. But guess what? We acknowledge that and we allow it.
yeah,
So why I would never do this. I've never been asked in my relationship to not be me.
right.
I get to be me, and I get to be you know, my honest self. I'm not holding anything back. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
And I share this all the time. It kills me to think that people are in relationships and living a life that they don't feel is true to who they are.
Yeah.
You know, whether it could be as difficult as realizing that, you know what, I'm you know, I love men instead of women, or vice versa, or, you know, I identify as you know, I feel like I'm not a male and I identify as another sex. Those are the real hot button issues that we hear about all the time. Or it can be just as simple as you know, I've given up on a part of my life that I love, like a hobby or something.
Yeah, like I'm not allowed to watch sports anymore. I'm not allowed to watch, you know, reality TV, or,
Yeah.
you know, like you said, or I'm not allowed to collect baseball cards anymore or something. And I've known people who've done those kind of things. You know, a guy that used to work for my dad did that. His wife hated that he collected baseball cards, and, you know, was constantly, anytime he would start a collection, she would come up with some reason or give him an ultimatum about the baseball cards. And of course he's going to choose her over his baseball cards, you know, and she knew that, and that allowed her to manipulate the situation, you know.
Control.
Yeah.
Codependency.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like,
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
like why would you make somebody give up what they love to do?
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Why would you exert that control? And then the other part of this too is like, look, if you're not monogamous, get out of your freaking marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
Quit cheating.
Yeah.
Just be honest about it.
I'm with you on
I'm
that.
not monogamous.
Yeah. Just
But
be honest up
that's-
front, and yeah, exactly.
Play
within your rules.
That society will never get past.
No, you're right.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
But I just, I really, I'm just happy he found freedom.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
way I've
I am.
over the years, I've really started looking at that more and more. Is, you know, the first thing we always tend to do with loss is internalize it. You know, like how much it hurts us, how awful it is for us. And it's like, you know, the reason people take their own lives is not generally to, I'll show them, you know, like
Yeah.
I'll make them
No.
feel terrible. You know, it's generally, you're not even on their mind at that point, as far as,
At all.
you know, like they're just trying to find a way out of the pain or the hurt or
Yeah.
being trapped or whatever the reason is. And like I said before, you know, I'm not advocating it. it's not an option that I would prefer anyone use. I would much rather you find some help or, some sort of support out there, because there's tons of it out there for it. But, it's tough. And these, especially if you have some sort of a, mental health situation or whatever, or, like people from different eras, from before like our age group and stuff, well before even like, my mom's grandparents or whatever. It's like, they came from a time where if a man lost a job, they the ultimate thing was not being able to provide for your family. Like that was the ultimate, like, you're a failure as a man at that point, so these things have all been around, and whatever it is that makes you feel you're at your rock bottom, it's, like I said, there's so much more resources now and people willing to help and that go out of their way to help now. So just, the one message we can't get through enough is, there is help and you're not alone. And, like you said, it's, all I can do for people who've chosen this exit is just wish them peace. I hope they found the peace they were searching for, and, it is sad. I feel bad for his family and friends and all, and the sponsees and all the kind of stuff that, because most people don't go through life without, touching others' lives, as you're drifting from place to place in your life, So all the ripples that you make as a person, and then, when you die, a lot of times some of those ripples become waves because of, how much and how deeply it affects somebody. So hopefully people that he was a sponsor for, don't doubt or discount the things he had told them. Cause like you said, there's truth there. It's just, like you said, he was able to apply it to a sobriety. But again, just because something works for one situation doesn't mean it'll work for another.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When I sent a text to my ex Emily, who we run into each other every once in a while. And she was at a museum somewhere in Salt Lake City and went right outside to call me, which I really appreciated. And she said something that just really struck me: is he couldn't love himself.
Yeah.
But he could love everybody else.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, whoa, you nailed it.
Well, think about all the comedians and stuff, or entertainers that we've seen kill themselves. It's the same idea, right? They're so, like, they're trying to make everyone else's life better, and they can't make their own any better.
Yep.
They just don't see a way how, but they go, well, I know I can make people laugh, so I'll do that. And, yeah. But that, you're right.
And it was like, and then I just applied it to the fact that what I always say about recovery, it's an inside job.
Yeah. Yep.
It is.
It totally is.
And if you can't love yourself, what do you have left?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have some tough choices, and this is something that that's something that I also learned as part. It's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says something about when you get to that point of that, you either go on to the bitter end, whatever that means, or you pick up the simple toolkit of these tools laid out in front of you, and you start doing some work.
Yeah,
it's one or the other, and it's an inside job. It's completely within. No one's going to do it for you. No outside thing is going to make it happen. But the truth of the matter is I hate to say it, but it's one of two choices. It's that whole thing with from the Shawshank Redemption: get busy living or get busy dying. Because it's really, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what it comes down to.
Remember, I mentioned about when I decided that it was time for me to go to therapy or go to the doctor and get help and whatever. Was I realized that I was at the point that I either was giving in or I was digging in, basically, like to fight. And I knew it. Yeah. And right there was the turning point. It was like, I have to fight or I'm just going to accept that this is going to consume me. Yeah. Like those are my options at this point. And you're right. I totally agree with you. I think you
And
do.
I think that
You hate to make anything black and white, but that is literally
yeah,
what it
it's the
comes
one
down
place
to.
where you're we could throw distorted thinking at this all day long,
Yeah.
and it doesn't change it. There's no gray area
Yeah,
here.
there's
Yeah.
not
And that's
really.
why when you talk about, like, I don't want to talk about advocate suicide, but it's like, well, if you only have two choices, go on until the bitter end or improve things,
Yeah.
well, then that choice, then I understand why someone would make the choice to just
Yeah.
say, I'm done.
I do too.
Mhm.
That's why I said, like, I gave, I forgot who it was the example of, and it was when I believe I was like 38 at the time, and we were talking about suicide, and I was like, if I told you that I knew I'm going to have to fight this fight every day for the rest of my life, and I'm going to live, let's say, whatever life expectancy is, what is it, 78 or something like that, or 75, whatever it is, that is still, 37 years for me to fight that fight, And it's like, I could see how somebody could just look at that and go,
Nope.
I just can't do that. And you're so already defeated that you just can't, you just go, the 38 years I fought it, or 20 years, 15 years, whatever your number is, it's like, I totally can understand it. Like I said, I don't want anyone to make that choice. I hope you fight, all the way until, you get to a better place. But boy, can I understand it. And asking someone to get up every day and fight that fight is a lot to ask of someone, And it's like, I was like, that person's not trying to be selfish. They're trying to be compassionate to themselves. And it's really hard for people to see that, and again, I understand both sides of it. I've known people who've killed themselves. It sucks. Because most of the time, like the scenario you talked about, Hannah, where you're like, I know why I don't need a note. Most of the time there isn't a note,
Exactly.
in the ones that I've been, around,
Yeah.
there's not a note. So it's like, there's no one, like, 1 point kind of thing. Nobody's leaving a box of tapes behind pointing how everybody made them kill themselves, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
it's sad.
I hope that, like I said already, I hope that Jessica takes this and lives a long life and has a beautiful life and is willing to, I don't know, find acceptance, find some understanding within her heart, and can go on but if she doesn't, I understand.
Yeah.
This is the first time, like, this is the third suicide of somebody that I know. But this is where I said I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Because the writing was on the wall for a long time.
Right.
However, this is the most personal it's ever been. And as for all the times and I will still say, seek help. Fight. It's worth it. It's worth getting through those days. Whatever you can do to see another day, do it. But there's a point where I also have to say, but if you can't do it, I understand.
Yeah.
Not judge you for making that decision.
Yep.
Yeah. Because who am I?
Yeah.
To say I do not control anyone else's destiny.
Yep.
That's not my place.
Yeah. Exactly.
And therefore, I'm not going to get mad at them why would I get mad at someone for choosing what they want for their lives when all I ask is other people allow me the same.
Right.
Right.
And so I really want to thank, both of you for allowing me to just kind of up and out with some of this stuff, even the not so good stuff. Like, I don't want to carry resentment about this. I don't.
Right.
It's there.
Oh yeah.
That'll
be the hardest part of it. Yeah, because you don't, like you said, you're not carrying hatred for him, so resentment's probably going to resonate a little stronger potentially than it might normally. Because normally hate or anger kind of a thing is the main thing you feel after someone does this. Like, why didn't you get a hold of me? Why didn't you? Or why wasn't I there? Like that anger and questioning and all that. That's usually that big step of the system. Yeah.
But it's sad where I'm just like, but I know why you didn't.
Yeah.
because you already called me, where it's like,
Right.
and I just sit there and I'm like, so what does that leave me with? That leaves me with, well,
Yeah. Said
that was his path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I just, and I want to thank everyone that listens to this episode, and allows me, this is a place where it helps me a lot. I've been looking forward to talking about this, over the weekend, and I want to put my tools to use on this.
Yeah.
And you will.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is one of them.
Well,
so,
and it's a good situation for, again, looking positives and moving forward. This is an opportunity, as, we've mentioned before, finding opportunity in things.
Right.
This is an opportunity for you to make sure you have the tools in your toolbox that you need. And if you don't, or you find that, something is dull, you can sharpen it, kind of a situation.
This is great. This is my intention for the week. And I'm going to go back to my, my baking a cake example from last week. If I'm holding on to any resentment by next episode, I better be making some cupcakes. And I don't like baking.
That's right.
Well, great talk, you guys. Yeah. We good?
We are.
I want to say really quick before we get into the end stuff. I have links in the show notes to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline website, which is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. I have a link in there to coda.org if you want to learn more about codependency. I have the number for the text line, which is to text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. It's anonymous, and same with the Lifeline. Or you can go to crisistextline.org. I just wanted to make sure that I say that stuff, not just include it in the notes. That way, if anyone listening does need any of those things, and I'm holding, and Jen and Henno can verify, I keep in my wallet at all times the card for the suicide prevention hotline, or Lifeline. Not that I honestly feel like I need it, but it's a tool. If I do need it, it's right there. I don't have to look for it. It's right there, and I have it. And in fact, this isn't even the first one that I've had. I've given some of these away. For a while, I was
awesome.
I'd take a new one when I'd go to therapy, and I'd explain to my therapist why, so she's not like, but like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm doing this because I'm spreading the tool around. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, folks, we talked about a lot tonight. And if you would like to carry on this conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us. You can reach us at thecrazylife.weebly.com is our website. crazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. The Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email address. You can reach me directly via Twitter at Witsky or Jen's Crazy Life, Jen with a G. Either one, you can find me there, and just shoot me a message. If you want to hear more from me, you can also hear me on Shake the Sheets. It's a pop culture talk podcast that I do with my co-host Nate. You can find that at any of the usual podcast places. And Henno, how can they reach you?
You can get me on Twitter at Ida Henno. Find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter. And this week, the video that I talked about that we did, it is on, if you go to Eye on Sun Valley, eye as in your eyeball, and it is episode 75, and they've got the whole episode for Eye on Sun Valley, and we are in there about halfway. It's us doing a little interview with the band, and then us playing the song that I mixed. So if you're interested, go check that out.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And you, Brian, how can they reach you?
Henno could also be heard on the Moving the Needle podcast.
That's true.
No.
Good call. Good call.
Which can be found on Twitter at MTNPod.
Thank you.
Yep. That's why I keep it in the notes here, so I can keep forgetting it and have to look at it.
This week, my pet film, Goon.
Ooh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like that movie.
I love that movie.
You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcast, Salty Language, can be found at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, so please be warned. You can find this show on Twitter also at the Crazy Life Pod. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com, and the Danger Entertainment Network, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. So please go check out please go check out those networks and find some other shows that you may enjoy, including Moving the Needle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also, there's an ad for it, which is always weird. It's like when our network was promoting Salty Language, it's weird to put an ad for a show that's yours on a show that's yours, So anyway, we've already said a bunch of times, again, I'll say it is, if you need help, please reach out. Again, there's all sorts of help out there for you. I listed some off. Those are great resources. Or just a quick Google search can find a bunch. If you have insurance, generally on the back of your insurance card, there'll be a number for a mental health crisis if you're having one. Just whatever you need to do, reach out to somebody. Please try not to be alone if you're having suicidal ideations, or planning or having thoughts of suicide. Please try not to be alone. And, again, please reach out to friends of yours if you see their world shrinking. If, there's, I believe, this little handout thing that I have on the website for the thing, there's suicide warning signs, so, maybe try to learn those. And, there's, much like somebody might go learn CPR, learning these kind of things might help you save a life too. So, try to be, maybe try to look at those as well, so you can help out someone that may be close to you. And then, of course, just keep trying to put kindness out there. We've, talked about some pretty heavy stuff today. So, just try to push, your positivity forward and be kind to other people, but also make sure to take the time to be kind to yourself. And, I guess that's it. I got nothing else.
Awesome. Mental CPR. I like it. I think that should be almost a topic for maybe another week. But with that, everybody, go out there, have the best week you possibly can. Hang in there, keep fighting, and we'll be here waiting for you next week.